How O.J. Simpson shielded his assets from the Goldman family. My name is Leon Jones Jr., and I am the managing attorney here at Big Rock Legacy Law Group. And today we're going to dive into a legal case that has intrigued financial analysts, legal scholars, and the general public for decades. It's the story of how O.J. Simpson, once a celebrated athlete, a murder defendant, and later a convicted felon, managed to shield his assets from the relentless pursuit of the Goldman family. Now, to understand this, let's go back in time to 1994. Nicole Brown, Simpson, and Ronald Goldman were brutally murdered. O.J. Simpson was charged with that murder, and after a dramatic trial that we all watched, he was acquitted in 1995. But in 1997, during a civil trial, a jury found him liable for those wrongful deaths and ordered him to pay $33.5 million to the Goldman and Brown families. Here's the catch though. Despite this massive judgment, the Goldmans struggled to collect the money. And you ask why? Because Simpson used strategic financial moves to shield his assets, including the use of trusts, pension protections, and possibly some offshore accounts. Now let's talk about trust in this asset protection. One of the most critical tools that Simpson used was to shield his assets through a trust, which is a legal entity that holds assets for the benefit of specific individuals. Those assets are managed by a trustee and they're governed by specific legal protections. It can be structured in ways that make it difficult for creditors like the Goldmans to access the assets. Now, it's believed that Simpson placed a significant portion of his wealth, including earnings and real estate, into the trust before the civil judgment. Now, keep this in mind, it's critical because courts can often reach into trust if they are created deliberately to avoid creditors after a judgment. But if assets are placed in a trust before liability is established, they can be much harder to seize. Trust, particularly irrevocable trust, make it nearly impossible for creditors to claim funds because the original owner, in this case, O.J. Simpson, no longer legally owns the asset. The trust owns the asset. Now, another move that O.J. Simpson made was to relocate to Florida. Well, why do you ask Florida? Other than the sunny weather, is because Florida has one of the strongest homestead exemptions in the country. Under Florida law, a primary residence is protected from creditors regardless of its value. So Simpson purchased the house in Florida after the judgment, knowing that the Goldmans could not force him to sell it to satisfy their claim. This was a brilliant legal maneuver that kept his house out of the reach of the Goldmans. He also used the NFL pension, which is another asset that the Goldmans could not touch because under federal law, specifically the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, or ERISA, protects pension funds from being seized by creditors. Now, Simpson was entitled to his NFL pension, which was worth millions and millions of dollars. But because it was legally untouchable, it became his primary source of income while the Goldmans were left empty-handed. Now, the Goldmans tried multiple legal routes. Federal protections ensured that O.J. was able to keep his pension checks rolling in. Now, it's also believed that he used some offshore accounts and he limited his income. These activities may be a little suspicious because he possibly hid his money in the Bahamas, and he did that to put it out of the reach of U.S. courts. These offshore trusts, if structured properly, can make it nearly impossible for creditors to penetrate. Furthermore, he structured his finances in a way that limited his income so it couldn't be garnished. Instead of receiving a traditional paycheck like you or I will receive that could be seized, he relied on exempt income streams, gifts, and other hidden investments. Now, the implications of this, at this particular standpoint, they were kind of questionable. They were brilliant legal maneuvers, but from an ethical perspective, many saw it as an injustice that a man found liable for wrongful death could legally evade payment. For many, many years, the Goldman family fought hard to collect their judgment. They tried to do everything, even up to seizing the royalties from his book, If I Did It. But despite everything they tried to do, they were never able to recover. So in the end, OJ's ability to shield his assets was not about luck. It was about understanding the legal system and leveraging asset protection assets effectively through the use of trusts, state exemptions, and pension protections, and possibly some offshore accounts. So think about that as you're building your wealth. Give us a call here at Big Rock Legacy Law Group and let us help you create a plan that will protect and shield your assets. Just as O.J. Simpson did, it's not about how he managed to outmaneuver the financial system, it's about how he protected his assets. Let us help you protect yours.